The House will come to order. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments the concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 820, an act relating to the open meeting law. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Koegel moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 820 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, the member from Anoka, Representative Koegel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. The reason that why concurrence is requested by the Senate is because the Senate amended Representative Elkins' bill, House File 1140, otherwise known as the technological update to open meetings law, into House File 820. Representative Elkins' bill passed unanimously out of local government and state government finance, and now is on the general register. What that Senate amendment, or with the Senate amendment into what the Senate amended into House File 820 is identical to Representative Elkins' bill, and I would recommend a concurrence.
Any discussion on the Senate amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendments say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File Number 820, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Any discussion? All right. There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Shit, I gotta go hook up my voter thing. Damn it, damn it, damn it.
Just a reminder to the members remote, please mute yourself. Members voting remotely, please vote.
Madam Speaker, you may want to remind people to keep their things muted.
The clerk will call the names of those who have not yet voted.
Ackland. Ackland. Anderson.
Ackland, present.
We're voting on House File 820 as amended by the Senate.
Members were voting on House File 820 as amended by the Senate.
Ackland. Anderson.
Ackland, yes.
Ackland, aye. Anderson. Anderson. Baker.
Baker votes aye.
Baker, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Davids.
David's aye.
Davids, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Franzen.
Franson, both aye.
Franzen, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez. Gomez. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R. I.
Hanson, R. I. Hassan. Hassan. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, I. Heinrich.
Heinrich I.
Heinrich, I. Johnson.
Johnson I.
Johnson, I. Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, aye.
Kotyza-Witthuhn, I. Long.
Long, aye.
Long, I. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, I. Mecklin.
Meckland, aye.
Mecklin, I. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, I. Novotny.
Novotny I.
Novotny, I. Olson, B.
Olson B. I.
Olson, B. I. Pearson.
Pearson, I.
Pearson, I. Poston. Poston. Robbins. Robbins, no. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, I. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, I.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 127 ayes and 1 no, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. Messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce that the Senate accedes to the request of the House for the appointment of a conference committee on the amendments adopted by the Senate to the following House File number 1952, an act relating to the operation of state government. The message, the Senate has appointed as such Senators Kiffmeyer, Lang, Curran, Howe, and Carlson. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following Senate files herewith transmitted. Senate file numbers 1160 and 1729. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate.
First reading of Senate bills.
First reading Senate file number 1160, an act relating to health care. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Health, Finance, and Policy. First reading Senate file number 1279, an act relating to public safety. The bill is being referred to the Committee on Public Safety, Criminal Justice, Reform, Finance, and Policy.
Calendar for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 1470. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 1470, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to emergency powers, the unofficial engrossment.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hausman. Ramsey, excuse me. Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the eviction moratorium off-ramp. The bill is moved and I'm to speak to the bill, is that right?
Well, that's right. Would you like to introduce your amendment first, Representative Hausman?
Yes, it's an author's amendment just to be very clear about the language in Ways and Means. There was some confusion about that 12-month period and staff suggested that a very minor amendment to make certain that the author's intent is clear.
So the clerk will report the amendment.
Hausman moves to amend Senate File number 1470, the unofficial engrossment. The amendment is coded A1.
Further discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor,
Madam
please.
Speaker,
Oh, yes, please identify yourself.
Rep. Lucero, just wanting to know if the bill author would entertain us with what exactly the changes were, since there are those of us not on Ways and Means not privy to that conversation. Thank you.
There were, there was
Just
a
a
little bit
minute.
of, I'm
All
sorry,
right,
Madam
go
Speaker.
ahead, Representative Hausman.
There was a little bit of confusion in Ways and Means. It appeared, and it had to do with this 12-month period. Some suggested it almost looked like you could go into a second year. That was not our intent. And that really, this was only during a peacetime emergency that, that we were talking about the restrictions on rent. Comes out of the.
Any further discussion to the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no.
No.
The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative Hausman, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the eviction moratorium off-ramp. At this particular stage, to avoid chaos, we need a plan, and that is what is in this bill. On March 13, 2020, Governor Walz issued an executive order declaring a peacetime emergency related to the rapid spread of the pandemic. He subsequently issued a number of related executive orders, making changes that would help keep Minnesotans safe during the pandemic. This included an order that prohibited evictions except in cases where a tenant seriously endangers other residents or is engaging in criminal behavior. The idea was that it's impossible to stay safe at home if you're evicted from your home, and that was motivation. Nothing in the executive orders removed the responsibility for tenants to pay the full amount of rent owed. The bill maintains the prohibition on evictions due to non-payment and allows evictions in cases where a tenant poses a danger to others, engages in criminal behavior, or remains in the property after they've been notified to vacate so the owner or owner's family member can move in. The landlord, the prohibitions on late fees and rent increases, the landlord may not assess late fees when non-payment of rent is due to a tenant's COVID-19 related income loss. They also cannot increase rent more than 6% and cannot increase rent during the peacetime emergency if they have increased rent during the previous 12 months. During the 12 months immediately following the end of the current peacetime emergency, landlords who intend to file an eviction for any reason other than those allowed during the peacetime emergency must provide written notice to the tenant at least 60 days before filing an eviction. No late fees may be assessed and rent may not be increased during that 60-day period. We did check to make sure that any of the policies we're changing only relate to this period of time and don't become permanent changes. It's important to note that the eviction moratorium wasn't issued as housing policy. It was issued as a public health imperative. Most of the discussion on this issue by those who want a complete and immediate end to the eviction moratorium focuses on the concept as if it is purely housing policy. That is misleading because this never truly was about housing. It has always been about public health. Ensuring that people were staying home to help stop the spread of COVID-19 meant that we had to ensure they weren't displaced from their homes. And at a time when so many came with a distinct and immediate threat of furthering the spread of COVID-19 at a time when cases were spiking and we could at least afford the risk. So why do we need to do this? In 2020, areas who suddenly ended their eviction moratorium without a plan saw spikes of COVID-19 cases. A study published in November from a team of researchers at UCLA found that between the start of the pandemic and the CDC's federal eviction moratorium in September, evictions led to 434,000 additional cases of COVID and almost 11,000 additional deaths. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we're currently still in the tunnel. We don't want to replace a health crisis with an eviction crisis. Why do we need that 60-day notice? The 60-day notice period after the moratorium ends allows time to access rental assistance funds. Minnesota is receiving from the federal government $375 million, and we think there is still more to come, to help assist individuals who have struggled to pay rent or associated fees during the pandemic. While at first glance, it may seem like a lot to give individuals a 2-month notice before filing an eviction, that timing allows them or the landlord to apply for assistance funds. This way, they are not unnecessarily displaced and the landlord can get what they are owed. Housing instability has a ripple effect to other areas of life. When a family loses their house, it can lead to negative economic, educational, and health outcomes. A stable home serves as the basis of the possibility for stability in all other aspects of life. So there is a strong public interest in ensuring housing stability in times when we aren't experiencing a pandemic, and even more so when we are. Representative Howard, who is vice chair, has additional description of the bill.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Hausman. I just wanted to offer a couple other notes of context before we pass this bill, engage in this debate. Amidst this pandemic, there's been a fair amount of contention and differences with how each side wants to handle this pandemic. But there are many areas where we share values and share goals, and I think that's underscored in this bill. I think we can all agree that COVID has not been fair. The consequences of this pandemic have hurt families and businesses through no fault of their own. I think we can also agree that we bear some responsibility to help those Minnesotans weather the economic storms, again, caused of no fault of their own. And that includes both renters and landlords. And so the aim of this bill and our efforts over the last year is to make sure that renters are able to keep their head above water and that landlords are made whole as well, while preventing a cliff of evictions that will come unless we take action in this body. Simply put, this bill is a win-win for renters and landlords. A few other notes of context. It's worth noting that currently, right now, landlords can evict tenants for the worst of the worst situations, as Representative Hausman mentioned. The governor's executive order included that language. It actually expanded based on feedback from landlords. And then in this bill, we are adding the ability for landlords permitting for evictions for the most egregious material breaches of lease. This is responsive to the feedback we've heard and an important step. The other important context I want to mention deals with rental assistance. I think there's a little bit of a misnomer in calling it rental assistance because it's both rental and landlord assistance. That's right, the rental assistance that we provided last year, or the governor provided last year through CARES dollars, provided assistance directly to landlords. And members, if you're hearing from your renters and landlords, I hope you will direct them to go to renthelpmn.org, where hundreds of millions of dollars are available to help renters stay afloat. And again, those dollars go directly to landlords, and landlords can even start those applications on their own. It's an important way that we together can help both our renters and landlords get through this pandemic. Lastly, this bill takes important step to meet the desire of members, I know on both sides, to move past the governor's executive orders. Passing this bill allows us to essentially end the governor's executive order on eviction moratoriums. We've had discussion. This is one of the items the governor wrote in his letter as a condition to removing his orders. So passing this bill takes us one step closer to do that. Lastly, members, I expect we'll hear stories from some of the landlords on the other side of the aisle, which is a good thing. We benefit when we have members who bring their lived experiences to the debate here in this body. But I also want to make sure that we center the experiences of renters in Minnesota, and I want to share one of those stories that I hope we hold in our mind as we have this debate. And that is of Mrs. Awa Dolly from Brooklyn Center. Mrs. Dolly owes $10,000 in back rent in utilities. She is a home health care worker earning $13 an hour. She came down with COVID, which rendered her unable to work for more than a month. When she was able to return to work, many people had canceled their home health care services, and she just kept falling deeper and deeper in debt. And what she shared recently is when you look at the bills, you don't sleep. You don't know when the doorbell will ring and you will be forced to leave. Members, shouldn't we provide assistance to Miss Dolly to make sure that she's able to get out of this pandemic on the other side? And members, wouldn't making Miss Dolly whole and ensuring that her landlord is able to secure those $10,000 in back rent, isn't that a preferable outcome to a costly eviction? Again, members, this is a true win-win for both the renters and landlords who are hurting in this pandemic through no fault of their own, and I encourage a yes vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Tice moves to amend Senate File Number 1470, the unofficial engrossment. The amendment is coded DE1.
I recognize the author of the amendment, the member from Stearns, Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I'd like to request a roll call, please.
Representative Tice has requested a roll call. There being 15 hands, a roll call will be held. Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to say that I really don't feel like this is a win-win for housing providers. And I feel like this amendment would bring it back into more of a compromise. And the reason I say this is that I think the Senate language, which was passed with an additional 9 DFL votes, is something that really is doable. And we need to do this more quickly than what we're seeing in the amendment that Representative and Chair Hausman has brought forward. The housing stock in Minnesota is going down. I will tell you that this past weekend, my husband and I received a call from a friend who's a realtor looking to see if we were interested in selling any of our 5 rentals. Folks, this should be very, very, very concerning, because if we're getting a call, so is a lot of the other folks that are being slumlords, who are being housing providers. I've also gotten an email from a person in a city who said that their multi-housing complex is up for sale, and they're not sure what they're going to do to keep it low-income housing. I don't know what they're going to do either. But the fact is, people are looking for homes. And so a lot of our single family, which is what we have 5 single family, are going to be looking for different ways to get housing for those folks who are willing to buy. I will tell you that for a moment, my husband and I looked at each other like, we could probably triple what we paid for the house. But then we looked at each other and said, but I can't do this, because we've been having a really good relationship with our 5 families, and some of them have been there for 10, 11, 12 years, since we bought the properties. And that's what I keep saying. We need to have better communications, better relationships, instead of making housing providers slumlords. You're going to lose them. We're going to lose the housing. If we don't change our act, we're going to lose our housing. And we can't do that. I also know that in one of our homes, because all the kids, all the family members are home, their water bill went from over $200, $250, to almost $900. Almost $900. Who's paying for that? Because I can't. I put in a driveway last summer for $5,000. I've got another one planning to go really soon, and I've got taxes due, but the new driveway is $4,000. How am I going to pay for that? A lot of people are going to be looking at these numbers and saying it just doesn't make sense anymore. We need to have something like what the Senate's proposing, where we're looking at 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days, and then we're done. And then we are done with the moratorium. And I truly believe that if we don't do it sooner than after the governor decides he doesn't have an emergency, which gosh knows when that's going to be, But I have been saying all year, I am scared that we're going to lose our housing. And I feel like we're closer to that now than we've ever been before. Yes, $150 million was released through Rent Help Minnesota. And I've heard that it's supposed to go directly to our housing providers, but I'm not hearing that exactly from our housing providers. I also know that the percentage of folks who would have been evicted before the pandemic is the same as it is now. So meaning that those folks have not paid rent at all. And there are people that have told our housing providers that I don't have to pay rent, you can't evict me. It is out there, it is happening. So now the rent lost has gone from $1,000 to $12,000 and above. Make no mistake, nobody can do this in multi-housing and still stay in business. We're closer to having Minnesotans vaccinated. We're closer to having herd immunity. And yet we're still tying down where we're going to do this for another year. We can't do that. We're not going to have the houses. My husband's thinking about retiring this summer. And if it's going to be one thing after another, one fee after another, one this after another, one mandate after another, we're going to get tired of it and just say, the heck with it, we're going to sell it. It can go to single-family housing. That's the reality of it. We can make housing providers as mean as we want, and we can have as many policies against them. But one thing we can do for them so that they can recoup some of those costs is to take the Senate language and we can end the moratorium in 90 days. We've got to look at what's happening to these folks that are taking care of those that are having a hard time. And I will tell you that between my husband and I, we have made many, many choices to carry costs. We have had many things go on, and I will tell you, we've covered it. But I can't continually cover an almost $900 water bill if I'm not making any money. I don't have anything in reserves right now. I'm not the only one. But what I'm telling you today is the housing market is so bad. We have such a little stock that people are making calls to see if people are willing to sell. And there's going to be some of them that are just going to say, I am not going to deal with this anymore. I'm done. Taking the Senate language and finishing this in 90 days is something that a lot of our housing providers can do to have the flexibility to work. Not all of them are getting the money. And I was talking to one of my folks that manages an apartment, and she said that they couldn't apply on the behalf of the tenant. So I've got to figure that one out too. What's going on? Why are we not seeing that? But taking this amendment today brings us closer to hopefully keeping the rentals that we have now. We've got to give homeowners, housing providers, something to hang on to, because there isn't a lot of love for them at all. They're going to turn their backs and they're going to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. And then we aren't going to have the housing we're going to need. Thank you, Madam Chair. Please vote green.
To the amendment, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would encourage a no vote on the amendment. This is the Senate language, and I do look forward to an opportunity for the House to pass our bill and to work with the Senate on legislation that can move forward and get the governor's signature. But there are deep problems with this amendment. And as Representative Hausman mentioned, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still in the tunnel. And it reminds me of an expression that my father-in-law is fond of saying, which is, don't eat the whole pig and choke on the tail. I don't know why anyone would want to eat a whole pig, but it makes sense, right? We are near the end of this pandemic, and we absolutely need to not botch this at the end. And creating a premature, flimsy off-ramp will lead to an increased wave of evictions. It's bad for public health. It's also bad for landlords. Members, I'll remind you that the rental assistance available has just came online. We need time for that rental assistance to flow to landlords to cover rent past due. And we know that as of March, roughly 116,000 renters were behind on rent. And let me take you back to the story of Miss Dolly, who owes $10,000 in back rent. What would be a better solution for that renter and for her landlord? Creating a eviction that can proceed immediately, or ensuring that she's able to be made whole, she's able to avoid having eviction on her record, and her landlord's able to recover the rent that is due. Representative Tice, you mentioned that landlords or housing providers are they're struggling, they're doing right by their tenants, and that is by and large the case. And I've heard of stories of landlords that are working hard to make sure that their tenants are applying for rental assistance, going out and beyond to make sure that they're able to file the paperwork they need so that both the landlords and the renters are whole. But we need time to make sure that that will work. And this amendment doesn't allow for that to continue. And I will mention that there are landlords that are not currently abiding by the governor's executive order. We've had, the Attorney General has had to file a number of suits. We've heard from renters where landlords have shut off utilities, changed locks, threats. We had one instance where an owner of a duplex who lives in Florida had shut off the propane tank in the middle of the winter of a duplex, affecting both the renter that owed rent and someone who was current. And again, these examples are outliers, but we need to have protections that work for renters and for landlords, and that's what the House bill does, and that's why I urge a no vote on the Tice amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Sherburne, Representative Meckland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will Representative Tice yield for a question?
She will yield. Go ahead, Representative Meckland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Tice, you made mention that in these challenging times, there's a lot of parts to this. But right now, there's a major housing shortage. So you're being offered a lot more money for these houses. If you were to sell them or buy them today, how much more would you charge for rent per month if you bought them at today's prices? Representative Tice.
Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and Representative Meckland. Well, let's see, probably, one of the houses I'm thinking of right now probably would go from 1,000 to at least 1,500 a month. Just guessing.
Representative Meckland.
And I thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank you for that, Representative Tice, because I'm hearing this from many, many landlords, many retired people that have a couple of, rental properties, and they're going to sell. And when they do sell, that their current rental prices, they base it on what they bought it at way back in the time, so they can afford to rent it out a lot less expensive. But when they sell it based on the current market conditions, these rental costs are going to skyrocket. And I don't know that we're doing the right thing by those that are looking for housing. It's a major shortage we have all over. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Asante, the Minority Leader, Representative Doubt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. We've got just a bit over 2 weeks until the end of session. I know that one of the outstanding issues is we still have emergency powers in place. I think one of the problems with this bill, and really, I don't know if you realize that you're doing it, but you're sending an incredibly mixed message. The provisions in this bill only take effect at the conclusion of the emergency powers, and you have voted not to end the emergency powers, I think 18 times in the House. So first of all, I don't even know why we're talking about this bill, because you don't seem to have any intention of ending the emergency powers. I also say that there's 2.5 weeks left in session because this is the point at session where people decide if they want to get done on time and they start rolling up their sleeves. I think what you've seen coming out of the Senate represents real bipartisan work. Every single one of the omnibus bills that came out of the Senate had bipartisan votes and broad bipartisan votes. This bill, when it came out of the Senate, not this version, but when it was sent over to us originally, not your language, but the Senate version of this bill had, I think, 46 votes coming out of the Senate, broadly bipartisan. What they're doing over there represents compromise, and it represents people who are showing that they're ready to roll up their sleeves and get this session wrapped up on time. 2/3 of the bills that left this body have left without a Republican vote. They don't represent any compromise. And this bill doesn't represent any compromise. Thank you, Representative Tice, for bringing this amendment forward. This amendment represents compromise. This is something that will wind down this particular emergency order and help us end the emergency powers. The underlying bill will not. And it will not get any Republican votes going out of this chamber. So take the lifeline that we're offering you here. This is us helping you unbutton your buttons to roll up your sleeves so that you can get the work done that Minnesotans expect you to do in the next 2.5 weeks. And we're right here to help you. So let us help you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any further discussion to the amendment? The author of the amendment, Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would encourage a green vote so that we can show all folks in Minnesota who are part of the housing situations that we care, that we hear their voices, and that we care. Thank you. Please vote green.
There being no further discussion to the amendment, the clerk will take the roll. Those voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of those who have not yet voted?
Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, no.
Bernardi, no. Davids.
David votes aye.
Davids, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Franzen.
Hanson votes aye.
Franzen, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, aye.
Garofalo, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hansen, R.
Hanson R, no.
Hansen, R, no. Hassan.
Hassan, no.
Hassan, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Johnson. Johnson. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Moran.
Moran, no.
Moran, no. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Olson, B.
Olson, B, aye.
Olson, B, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. Zhang J.
Don't do no.
Zhang J, no. Zhang T.
Zhang T, no.
Zhang T, no.
Johnson, aye.
Johnson, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 62 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended.
Third reading, Senate File Number 1470, as amended.
Third reading as amended. Discussion to the bill as amended. The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm wondering if the bill's author, Representative Hausman or Chair Hausman, would yield to a few questions.
Representative Hausman, will you yield?
I will.
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Hausman, I'm on Ways and Means, and I ask a couple of these questions, but we were only allowed to ask a couple of questions in Ways and Means, so not all of my questions were answered. But I'm wondering, in this bill, is there a requirement in this bill for a person to prove that they can't pay their rent?
Representative Hausman.
I was just looking to see if I'm on mute. The only proof is required is at one point they must have proved that they have lost their income due to COVID.
Representative Scott.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Hausman. And is there a requirement in this bill that a tenant must apply for rental assistance if they're behind on their rent?
There is not.
Representative Hausman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker. The one additional policy in this new federal money has an advantage for the landlord. It's much more intentional. The landlord actually can start the process and begin some of the work. At a certain point, the administrative office will notify the tenant and bring them into the conversation as well. I will tell you, all players want to move quickly. I want to move quickly. What's happening in the lives of people, as many of you have observed, is certainly damaging to them. My understanding is there is a press conference tomorrow that the governor's office and Minnesota Housing have, where they aggressively lay out this transition plan to how we get the money out the door and pay the bills. And that is, my understanding, is happening tomorrow. So there's an intentional desire to move quickly.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Hausman, another question that I have is, my understanding is that in this bill, you allow a 12-month off ramp. So after the peacetime emergency is called off, then that's a 12-month off ramp. And so my question is according to this bill, as I read it, there's only a 60-day moratorium. There's only a 2-month moratorium basically on foreclosures, but there's a 12-month moratorium on rent. Is that correct?
Representative Hausman.
Madam Speaker, the 12-month time frame is simply to provide an opportunity for all of this money to go out the door. As I said, over 300 million now, and our understanding is there might be an additional 200 million. The problem is big, but so are the federal resources coming our way. Again, I want to emphasize there is a new opportunity in the federal direction that allows the landlord actually to start the process by starting some of the paperwork. So it's an opportunity that hasn't been there before that is current now. So we're hoping that will speed the process along.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Hausman, I didn't hear an answer to the question. Is there just a 60-day moratorium on foreclosures in this bill?
Representative Hausman.
Well, the practical, that 60-day, I'm just looking for my language. Doing this remotely, you don't always have the right paper in front of you. If Representative Howard happens to have his bill, he might have an immediate answer to that, Madam Speaker. I'm just blank. I'm just not finding the right page.
So Representative
Speaker?
Yeah, Representative Scott, you have the floor, but Representative Howard is available to answer that question if you want to.
Representative Howard, if you would ask that or answer that question if you know the answer.
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Scott, that is correct. The foreclosure moratorium would last 60 days after the peacetime emergency. I would note the difference between the foreclosure process and an eviction process. The foreclosure process taking a lot longer time period, whereas an eviction, as we've talked about in previous bills in Minnesota, we have one of the quickest states where an eviction can be brought. And so that hopefully helps answer some of the difference there.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I don't know, Representative Howard, if you want to continue yielding, maybe you actually know the answer to these questions. So how did you arrive at the 60-day moratorium on foreclosures? That's my first question to you. And secondly, how does this work if the mortgage that the housing provider has, if they go into foreclosure and the mortgage provider is out of state? How does that work legally?
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the first question, we arrived at 60 days in part, as I mentioned in the previous answer. The foreclosure process does take a great deal of time, and we arrived at 60 days. I note that the Senate bill doesn't have this provision whatsoever. And if she could repeat the second question.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Howard, I'm just wondering if the mortgage that the housing provider has is with a company that, and most of them are out of state, how does that work with, making just a state law here in Minnesota, putting a moratorium on foreclosures when they may have the mortgage with a company in Connecticut?
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I mean, we've vetted this with our nonpartisan House research. I could get back to you with some specifics, but we have went through a home foreclosure crisis in the past and want to make sure that homeowners, like renters, are protected to the extent we can.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And folks, this bill is problematic in a lot of ways. Just the least of which is this whole foreclosure matter. Basically, what we're doing is we're allowing, it's already been a year that people haven't, 12 months, 13 months now, that people have not been required to pay the rent. I understand that it's still due and owing, but we don't know when the peacetime emergency is going to end. But let's say if it ended tomorrow, and maybe what you're doing here is signaling to us that the governor is getting ready to end his peacetime emergency. And gee, I hope that's accurate. But let's say it happens tomorrow. There's a chance that there are going to be people that are 2 full years behind on their rent. And that's an awful long time for housing providers to go without any income on their property. And not, I think the federal government at one time had a moratorium on foreclosures. I don't think that's in existence anymore. I don't know for sure. But this is kind of making an uneven playing field where the renters are going to have, 12 months to pay the rent that they're behind at least possibly 2 years. And the landlord, housing provider is not going to have that amount of time. The foreclosure process may take a little longer than the eviction process, but it doesn't take that long. And so members, by extending this off-ramp for 12 whole months, we're going to need an off-ramp for the off-ramp. That's what's going to happen with this, because people's back rent could continue to build up. And when somebody is behind 2 full years on their rent, I mean, I don't know if there's going to be, I haven't seen the federal language. I mean, I know there's been like almost $627 million put towards housing security for rental properties, people paying their rent. But my concern is that one person is not going to be able to get 2 years worth of rent to pay back to their landlord, which, by the way, it may be too late by the time the money gets there for that landlord. They may have already had to they may have already gone through the foreclosure process. So members, there's plenty of problems with this bill. As Minority Leader Doubt said, this is not compromise. And the Senate bill is. And so members, I would encourage a no vote. And let's go back and adopt the Senate language. Let's take this back to the Ways and Means again, and let's adopt the Senate language so that we have a compromise bill that will actually pass and go into effect and be reasonable. Thank you, members.
Further discussion to the bill. Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I'd encourage a yes vote. Just briefly to some of the comments by Representative Scott, I just want to be clear that nothing in the governor's executive order or in this bill would cancel rent owed to landlords, which is why it's so vital that we provide time for housing assistance to be able to flow and get to landlords that's in the best interest of both landlords and renters. Lastly, I want members to, we're talking about a bill that will prevent evictions. And I want members to understand how devastating just having an eviction filed on your record is for Minnesotans. Having an eviction filed on a Minnesotan, if you are pregnant, affects the maternal health. If you children in homes with children where there's an eviction filed, the increase of mental health challenges and performance in school is an issue. And of course, these issues are much worse for our BIPOC communities, the communities most impacted by this pandemic. I think of our last economic recession after the home foreclosure crisis, where tens of thousands of Minnesotans and Americans across this country were plunged into poverty based on no fault of their own. And in this pandemic, I believe we have a responsibility to help Minnesotans weather these economic storms. We simply cannot allow this pandemic condemn Minnesotans to poverty, which is what an eviction will do. This bill says not on our watch. We are not going to let that happen. The first step that Minnesotans take out of this pandemic is going to be filled with hope and opportunity, and that's why I encourage you to vote yes on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Lyon, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Hausman yield for question?
Representative Hausman, will you yield?
I will.
She will. Go ahead, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hausman. Just a couple of questions when it comes to this bill that lays before us. When the unemployment bonus was passed by the federal government and through the state of $600, one of the reasons that was done is so that people could pay their rent. If folks receive that, is there, in order to receive this assistance through those accounts that you talked about, do they have to use that money on rent, or do they have to utilize that? Do they have to at least show that they made an effort to pay rent using those dollars, or how does that affect this?
Representative Hausman.
I think some of that has been happening, Madam Speaker, because in testimony in committee, when Minnesota Multi-Housing testified to the records of rent payment, they said that everybody was surprised that it was that more rent was being paid than they were anticipating. So there was huge effort, I think, for many people to stay current on their rent. When those administrative offices around the state that do the work to get the money out, they absolutely have, as that application comes in, there's a good bit of financial information asked for. So it's a little like going to your bank, I think. They don't just write a check. They do inquire about significant amounts of resources and so forth.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, and then would Representative Hausman yield for another question?
She will. Go ahead, Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Hausman, just also, obviously getting free money from the government is a taxable account. The state is currently taxing PPE loans. The state is currently taxing the bonus unemployment checks on people's checks, and it's written into some of the surplus that we're having in our bottom line right now. And how will this be affected with income taxes? Obviously, you mentioned that there's many people that maybe owe over $12,000 in back rent that haven't paid rent already for 12 months. Will they receive a tax bill along with this? And then also, if the landlord, the housing provider, receives some of this money essentially to pay people's rent for them, will they be taxed on that income as well? How does that process work?
Representative Hausman.
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. I have absolutely seen no indication of that. I mean, just practically, all this is doing is paying the rent. And so when the landlord receives it, he's receiving the rent that he normally would have received from the tenant in any case. So this is not income. This is paying the bills.
Representative Swazinski.
Well, Madam Speaker, this is income. I mean, essentially, if it's $12,000 or $5,000, it's income. You're receiving it from the government. Someone's paying your rent on your behalf. Will it be filed in their taxes that they received it? And will it be a taxable indentation? Because essentially there is money being paid for services offered and labor offered and housing offered. How does that get tracked as far as the tax? Maybe Representative Marquardt could comment to that.
Well, at this point, you've asked Representative Hausman to yield. So are you asking her a question, or do you want to ask somebody else to yield?
I think it was more of a statement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion to the bill. Representative Tice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would hope for a yes vote on this amendment for several reasons. But one, I just want to make clear that nothing in this bill has anything to do with the help that Minnesota is handing out from the federal money. This is all on its own. But when the website came out, I contacted Mr. Baumtrag and I said, I'm hearing from folks that they can't help their renters apply for the money. Is this true? And he said, this is his reply, that the landlords can do a lot to assist by registering their properties, submitting information, to make payments, et cetera. But as of right now, landlords cannot directly on behalf of renters. And what I meant by that was, and I think it's here in the second line, this is because of the eligibility requirements on renters and their requirement to sign the application. What I meant was, can they help their renter do it? So I think that's right, we're on final passage, vote no. Sorry. I still want this amendment to go on, you guys. But I think what we're seeing is we need to get serious. We need to pass something, we need to compromise, and we need to do it sooner than later before we lose our housing providers. Vote no.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Well, Madam Speaker and members, I think it's pretty clear that we now know something new about the DFL, and that is that this DFL majority loves telling people what to do. This DFL majority loves telling people what to do, loves telling them what to do with their property, loves telling them what to do with where they can go and how they can do it. And this DFL majority especially loves telling people what to do with their money, especially when they can use the power of government. Now, we are in the 14th month of a governor having supreme executive powers. And what we have seen on the other side of the aisle, or the other chamber, are some DFLers and Republicans working together, reaching a conclusion, compromising, getting things done with a veto-proof majority on a compromised piece of legislation. And what does the woke DFL and the House DFL do with that? What does the woke wing do? They hijack the bill and dump a bunch of controversial poison pills. Members, there is no chance this bill will become law, zero. But what it will do is it will extend the uncertainty for housing providers. It will extend the uncertainty and the anxiety that renters have, and it will bring more instability to an already stressed property market for renters and homeowners. It makes no sense to be going forward at this point, less than 3 weeks until the end of session, to be coming forward with a poison pill bill like this. And it's actions like this, it's behavior like this, which is going to result in the House DFL being responsible for not getting their job done on time, for not being able to finish before the constitutional deadline. So my advice to members of the chamber is to vote no on this bill, defeat this partisan attempt, and actually work towards getting your job done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Minority Leader, Representative Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I would encourage a no vote on this bill. I think that's obvious. This is a pretty extreme measure that does not contain any compromise. But moreover, I just wanted to talk about the fact that this is the wrong direction. And not what's in the bill, but just the fact that we're bringing a bill that doesn't have compromise in the last 2.5 weeks of session indicates that we're not serious about getting our jobs done here. Moreover, I want you to think about if you've just been so defeated that you don't think the House of Representatives or that the legislature has any power whatsoever. And what I mean by that is, why are we passing bills in the House that say this will happen once the emergency powers end? If you believe this is good policy, why don't you have the enactment date right away? Why are we waiting until the emergency powers end? And I'll remind you, you have voted against ending the emergency powers, I think 18 times. I might be wrong. We've done it so many times that it's difficult to keep track. And for 14 months, they've been going on. I think everybody understands the things that need to happen between now and the end of session so that we can get done on time. One of them is we've got to find a solution for this eviction moratorium thing, because I think it's important enough to you and important enough to the governor that we're not going to just end the emergency powers likely, or you're not going to, without doing something. But this isn't it, okay? And you've rejected what the Senate, the compromise that they came up with on a bipartisan basis. It's very weird for me to stand at the microphone and applaud what the Senate is doing, but they're serious about getting out of here in 2.5 weeks. They're serious about getting their job done, and they're sending out bills that have broad bipartisan support. And we're over here, you're backed into your ideological corner trying to convince the world that you're going to hold on to and grasp onto your last little ideological position, and the world around you is moving to different places. So think about that question. Why are you passing bills out of this chamber that tie their enactment to when the emergency powers end? Stand up and do your damn jobs. The emergency powers have been in place for 14 months. I don't see a scenario where we get out of here with the emergency powers still in place. And that's not a partisan thing. If I asked you to raise your hand if you want to be back here every month all summer long, again, like we were last year, how many of you would say you do? 0, probably. So we're going to end the emergency powers before we leave here, when we set our budget, and we've got to find out a solution to this problem. The Senate has done the work to find a bipartisan solution that Democrats actually do support, and we know that because they passed it out with 46 votes. But today you're going to send this bill out with 0 Republican votes. It's time to get out of your ideological corner, roll up your sleeves, and let's get to work to get our jobs done. Time is running out. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
The author of the bill, Representative Hausman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And the urgency that's been expressed, I think we all feel that. So a green vote today gets us to conference with the Senate. And I am quite sure that both House and Senate feel the urgency to have an off-ramp and to have that done quickly. Those conversations between the Senate and the House, that is how we reach compromise. The Senate passes a bill, the House passes a bill, and we get together to have conversation between the House and the Senate. And we know we have to get to compromise quickly. There is strong motivation for that. At this point, there are some solutions in the House that are not in the Senate, and there are some in the Senate that are not in the House. I actually tell you, because I've looked at both bills and I've had a conversation with Senator Draheim, our resolve is to reach compromise quickly. I am confident of that. Thank you for the discussion today, and I would appreciate a green vote.
Seeing no further discussion to the bill, the clerk will take the roll. Members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk call the names of those who have not yet voted?
Anderson.
Anderson, no.
Anderson, no. Baker.
Baker, no.
Baker, no. Bow.
Bo, no.
Bow, no. Davids.
Davids votes no.
Davids, no. Davney.
Dabney votes aye.
Davney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson is no.
Erickson, no. Franzen.
Franzen votes no.
Franzen, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, no.
Gruenhagen, no. Haley.
Haley votes no.
Haley, no. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich, no. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero, no. Mason.
Mason, yes.
Mason, aye. Nash.
Nash, no.
Nash, no. Olson, B.
Olson B, no.
Olson, B, no. Pearson.
Pearson, no.
Pearson, no. Pryor.
Aye.
Pryor, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, no.
Swazinski, no.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 62 nays, the bill is passed as amended and its title agreed to. The next bill on the calendar of the day is Senate File 193. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 193, number 2 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to health occupations, the first engrossment.
Representative Morrison, would you like to put the House language in before you present your bill?
Madam Speaker, yes, I would, please.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Morrison moves to amend Senate File number 193, the first engrossment, as follows. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert the following language of House File number 269, the first engrossment. The amendment is coded DEA 269.
Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Representative Morrison, to your bill as amended.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, House File 269 is a bill to allow Minnesota to join the Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact, or PsyPact, which is an interstate compact that allows licensed psychologists to practice telehealth and do some in-person visits across state lines in other PsyPact member states. It's currently law in 15 states and is pending in 10 others, including Minnesota and Iowa. PsyPact will provide many benefits to Minnesotans. It will increase access to care by allowing psychologists from other compact states to provide services to underserved populations in Minnesota. This is an important equity issue as people in rural areas and certain disadvantaged populations currently have long waits for services or receive no services at all. It improves continuity of care. Minnesota psychologists can follow a patient that attends college out of state or serves in the United States military and is highly mobile, or continue to treat a patient that spends part of the year in another state. SIPAC is strongly supported by the U.S. Department of Defense to support their personnel and their families who move frequently. Veteran suicide is at an unacceptably high rate. We owe it to our vets to help them get the care they need. There's a huge unmet need in mental health care in Minnesota, and there was one before the pandemic, and we know that the events of the past year have made that need grow in both numbers and urgency. The increase in mental health needs and substance use disorders brought on by the pandemic have grown. These are longer-term challenges that require longer-term care, and the number of people who need them has increased. We don't have enough psychologists in Minnesota now to meet those needs, and without SIPAC and the psychologists from other compact states, we won't be able to fill the need for over a decade. It takes a student entering college many years of study before becoming a fully licensed psychologist. SIPAC will protect Minnesotans and those in compact states with the highest standards. I'm sure many of you have heard from constituents who support this change. I know I have. And psychologists across the state support Minnesota joining SIPAC. They know, we all know, how acute the need is. The Minnesota Psychological Association and the Board of Psychology support Minnesota joining SIPAC, as does NAMI. This legislation has bipartisan support. I especially want to thank Representative Keel, who is a co-author, and Senator Benson, who is carrying the legislation in the Senate. So let's protect the health of Minnesotans across the state by joining SIPAC and expanding access to much needed mental health care with no impact on the general fund. Members, I urge you to join me in voting green so that we can get Minnesotans the care they need and deserve.
There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 193, as amended.
Third reading. Discussion. To the author of the bill, Representative Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge a green vote for the health of Minnesotans. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will call the names of those members who have not yet voted.
Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Bowe.
Bowe, aye.
Bowe, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Franzen.
Franson votes aye.
Franzen, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hansen, R.
Hanson, R, aye.
Hansen, R, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Moran.
Moran, aye.
Moran, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Olson B.
Olson B, aye.
Olson B, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 132 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed as amended and the title agreed to. There is another bill at the desk. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File Number 151, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to the state lottery, the first engrossment.
I call on the author of the bill, the representative from Hennepin, Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, you may have heard of the lottery winner's curse, in which it's rumored when one wins the lottery, bad things happen. Over the years, winners have been victims of catfishing schemes, robbery, and even murder. In today's technological day and age, if a bad actor were to seek out a lottery winner in order to do them harm, it's even easier to locate them and their contact information online. Senate File 151 is a consumer protections and data privacy bill to allow presumptive anonymity for lottery winners here in Minnesota. I've worked with the Senate author and the Minnesota Lottery on the compromise language already passed by the Senate, such that winners of cash prizes over $10,000 have presumptive anonymity, but may opt in to any marketing opportunities by providing written consent to the lottery. There is no change to the winner's privacy on cash prizes up to $10,000. I ask for your support.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 151.
Third reading. Discussion.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Representative Lucero.
Rep. Lucero. Would the bill author yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn. I am just wondering, can you confirm for us that this is data privacy would be the default and they would have to opt in to disclose? I just want to be absolutely sure.
Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Lucero, yes, that is correct. So it's presumptive anonymity. That is what is assumed when they win, and then they have to provide written consent should they want to participate in any marketing opportunities as a part of the lottery.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn. That is fantastic. This is what not just lottery winners should undergo in order to have a default of a privacy position, but is what we should have in everything in the spheres of our daily lives, whether it be healthcare or anything else. So I love that this provision is in there, the default of privacy, and they would have to opt in to have their private information disclosed. I encourage members to vote green. Thank you.
Further discussion to the bill. Seeing none, the author of the bill, Representative Kotyza-Witthuhn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, it's a good bill. Vote green.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those members who have not voted yet?
Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Bo.
Bo, aye.
Bo, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Dabney, aye.
Davney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, I.
Erickson, aye. Franzen.
Franson votes aye.
Franzen, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hansen, R.
Hanson, R, aye.
Hansen, R, aye. Hassan. Hassan. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Olson, B.
Olson B, aye.
Olson, B, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Swazinski. Swazinski.
The clerk will close the roll.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye. You'll have to add one, right? Just say 131.
Okay, add one. There being 131 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. There's a bill at the desk. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File Number 1020, number 4 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to commerce, the second engrossment.
To the author of the bill, Representative Klevorn from the County of Hennepin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. As we all know, many licensed professionals are required to take continuing education courses to refresh foundational knowledge and skills or to add new skill sets. Some continuing education classes are regulated by the state. Senate File 1020 is a bill to bring clarity to some of these regulations. The legislation before the body today is a combined effort of industry and community stakeholders, the Department of Commerce, and multiple members of this body. I'd like to extend my gratitude to Representative O'Driscoll for his partnership and for lending his expertise and work product to this bill. Senate File 1020 was born of language of 2 House files. House File 1768, which was related to realtors, commercial real estate agents, and insurance agents, and House File 737, related to licensed real estate appraisers. I'd like to thank Chair Stevenson for working with Representative O'Driscoll and me to bring these bills together as one. In the current statutes, there are prohibitions that keep groups from using continuing education classes to advertise, recruit, or solicit business. Senate File 1020 creates clarity around these regulations and creates several exemptions allowing coordinators or instructors to do 4 specific items. They may display a company logo or branding. They may establish a trade show or conference booth outside the area of education where education content is being delivered. They may display or distribute any print or electronic advertisement for a good or service in the classroom during breaks or breaks from the educational content. And 4, they may display a third-party logo, promotion, advertisement, or affiliation with a particular entity. Further, Senate File 1020 contains permissive language for licensed real estate appraisers regarding unofficial evaluations and an important valuation bias training requirement. Representative O'Driscoll will speak more to this portion of the bill on 3rd reading. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its 3rd reading.
3rd reading, Senate File Number 1020.
3rd reading, Discussion. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and Representative Klevorn, thank you for the partnership that we had in bringing these two bills together. The appraisal portion I'll speak to in just a moment, but the real estate and insurance portions modernizes some language that we've had in our state statute. No one, again, back in March of 2020 asked for COVID. COVID found us, and that accelerated the need to shift the environment in which we provided professional training for real estate professionals and insurance professionals in our state. With the work of Representative Klevorn and others, we now have laws and statutes that reflect the current and modern times that we do offer this training. As many of you know, I work quite extensively in these areas of real estate appraisal and insurance across the state of Minnesota. And as a result of work that I've done with the appraisers, they came to me and they said, we have 3 initiatives that we'd like to work on this year. First was the evaluations portion. The second was cleaning up and modernizing some language for online CE for them. And the third, and members, you should feel very proud about voting yes for this bill today, because the third provision, our Minnesota appraisers came to the legislature and said, we would like to require valuation bias training. We would like to require, as part of continuing education, information on valuation bias. This is one of the first states in the nation that will adopt this law. By your passing this bill today, and us sending it later today to Governor Walz, we will be the first state that will have valuation bias training as a requirement in the next continuing education cycle for Minnesota appraisers. Very simply, what does valuation bias mean? Valuation bias is to raise the level of awareness of appraisers that when they go and knock on a door that they've been hired to do an appraisal on, they don't make the valuation of the property based on the person who answers the door. They make the decision on what the value of the property is based on the market merits of where that property is located. So ladies and gentlemen, today you will have the opportunity to be a leader in this nation by voting yes on this bill. And again, we're working in partnership with professionals and the state law. We're bringing about some pretty powerful change here in the state. I encourage a green vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Any further discussion? To the author of the bill, Representative Klevorn.
Thank you, members, and thank you again, Representative O'Driscoll. It's a pleasure to work with you. Members, I encourage you to take this nation-leading legislation forward, and I ask for your green vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. Members voting remotely, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those members who have not voted yet?
Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Bowl. Bowl. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Daphne, aye.
Davney, aye. Eklund.
Eklund, aye.
Eklund, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, aye.
Erickson, aye. Franzen.
Franson, aye.
Franzen, aye. Garofalo.
Garofalo, no.
Garofalo, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grunhagen.
Grunegan, aye.
Grunhagen, aye. Hansen, R.
Hanson, R, aye.
Hansen, R, aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Heinrich.
Heinrich, aye.
Heinrich, aye. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, aye. Lucero.
Lucero, yes.
Lucero, aye. Nash.
Nash, aye.
Nash, aye. Olson, B.
Olson B. Aye.
Olson, B, aye. Pearson.
Pearson, aye.
Pearson, aye. Swazinski.
Swazinski, aye.
Swazinski, aye.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 126 ayes and 5 nays, the bill is passed and it's titled agreed to. There is a bill at the desk. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 1947, number 5 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to local government, the first engrossment.
To the author of the bill, the member from St. Louis, Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Duluth Entertainment and Convention Center was created as a legal entity via session law in 1963. It was constructed in 1966 and hosted the UMD Bulldogs hockey team. Over time, several additions were added, including curling facilities, a convention center, a movie theater, and an arena, the last of which has regularly hosted the NCAA Women's Frozen Four. The deck has undergone many changes and renovations since its opening in 1966. Given its gradually expanded mandate, its statute requires modernization, and this bill would accomplish that. Of the changes that the bill makes, most are purely technical. It also works to do non-competitive bidding, moving the contracts from 2,000 to 50,000, and this number is standard for convention centers like the deck. House File 1947 maintains the original intent of the statute, make updates to modern business standards, and accurately reflects the current operations, including language to be consistent with bylaws, updated pronouns to gender neutral, and updated bid requirements, as I mentioned. As the facility has evolved over the years, so too must the deck's operating language in order to better reflect modern times. I ask for your support of House File 1947. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
There being no amendments at the desk, the clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, House File number 1947.
Third reading. Discussion. Any discussion? To the author of the bill, Representative Olson. No further discussion. Well, in that case, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. Will the clerk please call the names of those members who have not voted yet?
Yeah, I'm behind you.
Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Anderson, aye. Baker.
Baker, aye.
Baker, aye. Bowe.
Bowe, aye.
Bowe, aye. Davids.
Davids votes aye.
Davids, aye. Davney.
Davney, aye.
Davney, aye. Erickson.
Erickson, no.
Erickson, no. Franzen.
Franson, no.
Franzen, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Gruenhagen.
Gruenhagen, aye.
Gruenhagen, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R. I.
Hanson R. I. Hassan.
Hassan, I.
Hassan I. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman I. Heinrich.
Heinrich, no.
Heinrich no. Igo.
Igo, I.
Igo I. Lucero.
Lucero, no.
Lucero no. Mariani.
Mariani, I.
Mariani I. Nash.
Nash, I.
Nash I. Olson B.
Olson B. No.
Olson B. No. Pearson.
Pearson, I.
Pearson I. Swazinski.
Kozinski, I.
Swazinski I. Zhang T.
Zhang T, I.
Zhang T I.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 108 ayes and 24 nays, the bill is passed and it's titled agreed to. With no objection, we'll resort to messages from the Senate.
Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce that the Senate accedes to the request of the House for the appointment of a conference committee on the amendments adopted by the Senate to the following House file. House File Number 991, an act relating to financing and the operation of state and local government. The Senate has appointed as such Senators Nelson, Weber, Miller, Bach, and Rest. Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker, I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 128, an act relating to state government, health and human services finance. The message is signed Cal R. Ludeman, Secretary of the Senate. Liebling moves that the House refuse to concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 2128, that the Speaker appoint a conference committee of 5 members of the House, and that the House requests that a like committee be appointed by the Senate to confer on the disagreeing votes of the 2 houses.
Representative Liebling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, members, this is the Health and Human Services Omnibus Bill, and it's really too bad that Representative Dow didn't go and tell the Senate to speed things up by taking our language over there, but he didn't. So we have to go to conference, so I would ask for your support for the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no.
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 Motion prevails. Announcements by the Speaker.
Announcement by the Speaker announces the appointment of the following members of the House to a conference committee on House File Number 2128. Liebling, Schultz, Gomez, Pinto, and Schumacher.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we will take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motion prevails. Announcements. Representative Winkler.
Mr. Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 4:30 p.m. Monday, May 3rd, 2021.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until Monday, May 3rd, 4:30 p.m. Oh, shoot, I got that wrong, didn't I? I'll start again. Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 4:30 Monday, May 3rd, 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The motion prevails and the House stands adjourned until 4:30 Monday, May 3rd, 2021.
When?